All righty, guys. So I just want to talk about um, the situation that is really at focus right now. You know, to be quite honest with you, I really didn't want to be um, having any of this to be a topic of my uh, video productions, but I feel, and to be quite honest with you, I expected it. I honestly expected it. So I published a post today on my Facebook account, and the post was by Snopes, and I knew that people were not going to be able to get past the fact that the article was published by Snopes. I knew it when I posted it. And just as I suspected, I had multiple people commenting on the fact that Snopes is not a reliable source. So I titled this video, Snopes is not a reliable source until they are a reliable source. See, I feel like the problem that people are experiencing during this time, as information is circulating, as we're being inundated by all of these theories and presumptions that are being presented as facts, which is not good. We should never perpetuate theories. We should never recirculate theories as facts. If we are recirculating them as theories, then wonderful. Please notate your circulation of a theory as a theory. The problem that we're seeing right now is that people are circulating and recirculating theories as fact. Guys, why do I believe this is so important? Well, let me tell you why. Because I believe that the troubles of the days ahead may include some similar types of large-scale challenges, similar to what we're facing today. Not that I necessarily believe that, it'll always be about plagues or, pandemics, but it could be a number of different things. And I feel that it's really important for us to get better. Guys, I can say all these things today, and so many people can argue with me. But the reality is that we're all going to come to a point where we recognize what was false that was circulating and what was true. As I've mentioned in some of my recent videos, I absolutely believe in evil operating in people. But to the degree that it is being perpetuated, it gives reason to start doing some investigations. And so I started out by just telling everybody that was inboxing me all of these conspiracy theories, please don't send me this stuff. And because I was already seeing enough of it on my Facebook feed, and I wasn't necessarily interested. But that's neither here nor there, because there did come a point where some people made some comments where they're like, John, if you investigated this yourself, you'd come to the same conclusion that I did. And I thought to myself, well, all right then, let's see. And so the problem is that people, their investigations include listening to people's commentaries. Folks, I want to tell you straight up. Commentaries are people's own spins based upon the information. How are we ever supposed to judge or weigh facts if we're never presented with the facts, but rather people's commentaries of the facts? And so I realized if I really want to weigh the facts, then I need to go to the source himself. And so I listened to the Bill Gates video where everybody was referencing. See, this was the foundation that everybody was building upon. And so I went and listened to the horse's mouth, right, so to speak. And I'm like, what is this guy talking about that everybody is saying? He came out publicly and said, ha ha ha, I want to annihilate the masses. And so I listened to what he had to say. And I realized in the video that everybody was referencing that he really doesn't elaborate as to what he meant by what he was saying. Now, at face value, it could have been interpreted one way or another. But the problem is if somebody says something, by the way, this is real life, guys. If somebody says something and you're like, OMG, seriously? No. Are you kidding me? No. Okay, I really have to ask this dude what he meant by that. Because, oh my gosh, this could really, be the Antichrist, you know? And so you go, if you're smart, to the person, and you ask them, sir, what did you actually mean by that? Because the way that it sounded, dude, you want to wipe people off the planet Earth by killing them. And he basically, if we were to ask him, he would come back, because I watched the other video where he actually elaborated. And so let me paraphrase what he said. No. That is absolutely not what I was saying. And then he explained what he was meaning. And I've said this in so many of my videos recently, but I'll just glance over it real quick for those who have never watched the videos. He specifically said that proper health care in the poorest countries would actually cause them to not, because it's a humanity response. It's a response from humanity, just like we're seeing right now during these present times, how everybody in their frantic, scattering and all these informational PowerPoints being presented, everybody's like, and they're just grabbing at things and then jumbling them all together and, and it's like, this is the problem that we're facing right now. And so people were responding on my Facebook post and they're like, you can't trust Snopes. No, Snopes is the devil. Well, the devil's the devil and he's a liar until he tells the truth. Similar to when the demons were identifying the Christ before the appointed time. He was like, hey, shut up, I don't want you telling everybody who I am quite yet. But the devil was telling the truth. So anyway, Snopes is an irreputable source until they actually post something that's reputable. And I always look at what they present with, because this is the deal, man. This is the deal. And somebody would comment it and they're like, oh, but he funded Planned Parenthood. Bill Gates did, so he's not a saint. And I'm like, yeah, no joke. I didn't say he was a saint. But why are we jumbling that into this? Does that, because he funded Planned Parenthood, does that mean that we get to twist his words and put our own spin on it and make him to say something that he never said? It's like, folks, this is our problem right now. We're taking all of these things and we're just mixing them all together without the ability to separate them. Like, even people's personal opinion about vaccinations is being jumbled into this, which is honestly illegal in the sense of basically the laws that I'm talking about, invisible things here, invisible laws that govern the right way to process information, to balance things on, or to judge things on balanced scales. That should be illegal to even bring that into the equation, because it's not about that. Whether we agree with Bill Gates or not about whether vaccines are good or bad, honestly isn't the point. It was where he was coming from when he said these things. And so he was basically saying that the countries that are the poorest have a higher birth rate because they actually have higher death rates. And he was describing what we know in the realm of deliverance as a poverty mentality, where you always feel like you need more. And I was saying in a recent video, if you watch these business shows like Shark Tank and everything, they always say to these people, your problem isn't that you need more money. And a lot of these business people, these new entrepreneurs, where is vaccines in the Bible? I mean, to be quite honest with you, listen, this is a ludicrous question. Oh my gosh, where is beer in the Bible? Where is a Tylenol in the Bible? I mean, come on, guys. Like, you can't weigh things that, biblically, that aren't actually referenced in the Bible. So if it's not in the Bible, then that means it can't be deemed as good or bad by the Bible's terms. And that's why you can't. Anyway, we got to move on from that. Where is a skateboard in the Bible? Where is a bicycle in the Bible? I mean, come on, folks. We can't go there. That's not a proper way to balance something. So, anyway, I wanted to get back to the point. These investors, they tell people on Shark Tank and, Undercover Billionaire and all these different shows, they tell people, listen, if I throw more money at you as an investor, that's not going to fix your problem. As I'm evaluating your situation, your lack of money is not what you need. But the people don't know that. They just think, oh, if I just had more money, I'd be more successful. But actual people who are successful say, no, you start with nothing and you build something, and then you take that and you build more, and that's actually, now, can an investment help? Sure. But my point is that the poverty mentality a lot of times will cause people to believe that more is always better. And he was describing that in the countries that have the poorest economies, they have the highest infant death rates. Even children who stillborns, miscarriages, even the mothers dying from the childbearing process because of all these different diseases, infections, and all these different things. And so, the point is that he was describing that the mentality behind a lot of the reasons why people produce 7 children per family in these poorer countries versus the average number being 2.1 or less in the wealthier countries is because of the mindset of always needing more. And so the fact that their children are dying, and he was saying, if you save the lives of their children, then they won't have this mentality where they just need to keep reproducing to kind of, listen, grief and loss and all these different things are real. And a lot of people literally will produce children as as a compensation effect. You guys know how that works mentally, emotionally, the way that we work and operate as people. It's a very valid and real thing. And he's describing this. So he wasn't saying that he's going to release vaccinations to kill off, people, to reduce people's population. And that's what Snopes was saying. And so people are coming on my Facebook and they're like, Snopes is an unreliable source. And it's like, hang on a second. How can we sit here and skip over all of the information that they are presenting simply because we don't like them? Let's look at what they have to say. And what was crazy about it, what was really crazy about it, is that all they were saying is what I was actually saying in my recent video. They said the same thing. And people are like, well, you can't go to Snopes because it's an unreliable source. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I've read a lot of their stuff. And a lot of their stuff is very reliable. And I would say some of their stuff is questionable. Absolutely. They could have a political bias. Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that they can't present information that can be weighed by us. And see, people are going to all these different commentaries to listen to their information. They're going to the next big conspiracy theorist. They're going to all of these, independent news reporters who are always looking for conspiracies. And some of them are true, some of them aren't. But the point is nobody's actually listening to Bill Gates. To me, that's a huge problem. Because how can you judge people's spins? How can you judge the actual source, the actual case at hand, without actually listening to the audio video recording yourself of what was said, and then asking that individual, or at least yourself, where you research even more, finding out what was he really saying in that? Was he saying what I think he was saying? Or was he saying what these people say he was saying? And it doesn't take long before you find out that he was not saying anything anywhere remotely close to what people were saying he said. And that's the only place that we really need to go for that particular fact. Now, here's the deal. Could Bill Gates produce a vaccine that has negative side effects? Of course. Because medicine in general has side effects, much of them negative. But here's the deal, guys. We have to weigh each piece of information by itself. Does the fact that Bill Gates support Planned Parenthood mean that he is Dr. Evil and that he can't produce any good thing in this life? No, it doesn't mean that. Bill Gates produced Microsoft. He's a stinking genius. I'm actually using Microsoft right now to bring this to you. It's a platform that has caused the church to be able to even be the church in this hour for many people, because I use Windows, which is manufactured by Microsoft. The guy brought to the market a phenomenal tool. Phenomenal. Now, you may not like Microsoft. You may like Apple. I don't care. But because it doesn't matter. Windows is a great tool. I prefer it. We need to get emotions out of the content. Pray about everything, trust in God and His mercy and grace. We need to get our emotions out of the content. Folks, exactly. Okay? Exactly. We need to take our opinion of Snopes and put it on the side, because it was crazy. I posted that they simply are sharing the same conclusion that I came to on my own. And somebody even commented and said, well, reading Snopes is no different than listening to a commentary. And I'm like, yes, until they're just simply reiterating what you came to on your own without listening to commentaries. See, this is the thing. Here's the cool thing. Watch this. I'm going to share something. Kathy Stott says, I've known for over 8 years that Snopes is run by the Black Hats. Sorry. And she's going to say again, look up who runs it. Guys, this is the problem. This is continuing. The more that people say these things, it's only confirming my point. The fact, I just said in the beginning of the video, the devil is a liar until he tells the truth. Just because the devil is called a liar in the Bible does not mean that he wasn't telling the truth when they were saying, what have you to do with me, Jesus of Nazareth? I know who you are. You are the Holy One of God. And Jesus said, be quiet. You're identifying me before my appointed time. Was the devil telling the truth in that moment? You better believe it. So guess what? Who cares who runs Snopes if the information that they're presenting is actually accurate? Yesterday's article, let's say they posted 99 articles yesterday and they were all bogus. If they post the one that actually has authenticated accuracies, then guess what? They're sharing the truth, and Christians who believe in these other things are liars. This is my point, folks. We have to make sure that even us as Christians are on the right side of the fence with these things. It was the Christians who were calling JFK the Antichrist when he suffered the fatal wound to the head, and they thought he was going to rise again, because the Bible says that the beast who suffers the fatal wound to the head will live and not die. And they thought he was the beast. There are Christians who thought every president was the Antichrist until he left office having not been the Antichrist. There were Christians who told me when I was supporting Trump during his campaign, as the Spirit of God spoke to me and said, Trump is going to restore patriotism to this country. People's heart and their love for their country is going to be resurrected because of this man that I am putting into office, is what the Lord spoke. And I had Christians throwing stones at me at the time and saying, men of God, how can you say that Trump, who does not exhibit any fruit of the Spirit, could be actually appointed by God? Well, I guess now we're seeing how he can be appointed by God. He stood for religious liberties and Christians and Jesus on Resurrection Sunday, and praying from the Oval Office of the White House in the name of Jesus Christ. I mean, come on. And this is my point. The fact that we care who runs Snopes to sway our decision about one article that they post is literally foolish, because the devil is a liar until he tells the truth, folks. And he specifically said who Jesus was even before the disciples said it. Even Jesus later said, who do people say that I am? And then they're like, oh, well, some say you're Elijah, some say this, and some say that. And man, the devil was screaming it before anybody else was. So let me tell you something. Even the black hats can produce factual information at times. Now, I'm not saying that Snopes is a 100% reliable source. I don't honestly think that anybody really is. But everybody has their frailties, folks. Every platform. But what God has been teaching us in humanity and as Christians is that he can produce good even out of people who are unsaved. And he can also produce bad even out of people who are saved. And at the end of the day, we need to stop judging people's positions on abortion to figure out if they said what we think they said about population control. You know, we need to. These are completely different things, and we need to be able to compartmentalize in this hour. It has been a resounding word that I've been sharing over and over again. I mean, it has been resounding. On every broadcast, I've been describing the need for us to be able to get our emotions out of the content, pray about everything, trust in God and his mercy and grace. I love the comment, but my emphasis is that we need to get our emotions out of the content. Too often, too quick, people are like, Snopes? You know, and they literally put the cart before the horse and they cut it off before they even read the article. Not a single one of those people who said Snopes is an unreliable source read the article before they commented that. That's the danger of where we are as Christians. That's the danger of where humanity is. They want their personal opinions about Bill Gates, about vaccines, about Snopes, about all of these different things to be Lord, rather than simply listening with the heart of love, which the Bible says gives people the benefit of the doubt by default. Love believes all things is what that says, and it literally translates that it gives people the benefit of the doubt by default before it is suspect of them. And so when I went back and listened to what Bill Gates had to say, I came to the realization that he was in no way, shape, or form saying what people, and mostly Christians, are bearing false witness that he was saying. In no way, shape, or form was he saying what mostly Christians are saying he said. And folks, when Christians are the ones bearing false witness, folks, I don't care if you're Christian or saved, or unsaved, I mean. I don't care if you're Christian or unsaved. If you're bearing false witness, you're bearing false witness. And it was the religious people that bore false witness, if you remember, in the Bible's days. We have to be careful not to manifest the religious spirit. We're in interesting times, folks. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up Bill Gates population control for you all right now. And we're going to listen to what old Bill had to say together, because enough is enough. For those of you guys who want to really know, maybe you don't know what to think. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you've been hearing the conspiracy theories. Maybe even you've begun to drink the Kool-Aid, but maybe, just maybe, you would like to reconsider some facts. Not narratives, not people's spins, not people's twists, but the actual fact, the evidence itself, then stay with me for just a moment, because that's what we're going to do together. All right? Here we go.
Let's go to a couple of questions that we've actually received since we started the webcast. The first is on population growth. And the question is, one of our most pressing issues is population growth. How do you expect this to be addressed?
Well, the population growth issue at the global level is not that daunting. That is, the population.
Wait. Come on. We have got to stop right there for just a second. This guy, who everybody says wants to annihilate mankind, to decrease population, to kill people. Guys, anybody who wants to kill people and wipe out people, what people are saying he means by this. Who in their right mind would think that that would be his position? The population issue is not really that daunting, he says. Wait a minute. Guys, this is a guy who people are saying, and we're not even done yet. We're just evaluating the evidence, because this is the guy who they're using his words to put their own spin and their own twist on it. So let's listen to him. All right?
Percentage-wise is growing slower today than in the past. And
so it's gotten better.
It will actually peak out. The problem is that the population is growing the fastest where people are less able to deal with it. So it's in the very poorest places that you're going to have a tripling in population by 2050. And so their ability to feed, educate, provide jobs, stability, protect the environment in those locations mean they're faced with an almost impossible problem. Northern Nigeria, Yemen, Chad. And so what we need to do is take this aid generosity and this innovation and go into those places, offer the women better tools where they want to space birthing or have a smaller family size, and improve health, because it's amazingly, as children survive, parents feel like they'll have enough kids to support them in their old age, and so they choose to have less children. Niger.
Okay, so I want to be careful not to respond too quick, because I was really excited in my previous video where I did this. But let's just hear what he just had to say. The guy specifically just got done saying that the problem with the population as a whole isn't even really a problem, which for a guy who wants to wipe out mankind because he thinks it's overpopulated, that really debunks that right there, because out of his own mouth, folks, out of his own mouth, he's saying the issue isn't even really a big deal. Okay? But where it is a big deal is in specific locations, specific countries where they are poorest, in the poorest countries. And the reason that it's so bad in the poorest countries, he's saying, is because of the death rates. And he said these people need to produce children. They don't have Social Security, folks. They don't have Social Security. So in the poor countries, the way that life works, they don't have retirement. All right? They don't have retirement. They don't have Social Security. They don't have Medicare. Okay? All of the things that we have in a wealthier nation, he's saying they don't have those things there. So the way that they do old age in the poorer countries is that they produce children who can support them in their old age, because that's how life is done in the poorer countries. Now, let's continue.
Right now, it's still 7 children per family.
Where 7 children per family in the poor countries is the average number.
As in the richer countries, you're often at a stable point of which is 2.1 or even less. And so it's really an acute problem in a certain number of places, and we've got to make sure that we help out with the tools now so that they don't have an impossible situation later.
So, what he actually said in this video is that the problem with the population issue isn't really that daunting as a whole. Where it is a problem is in these poor countries. And he specifically says the problem exists in the poorer countries where they can't handle it. So what he's saying is in the poorer countries, they're producing more children. And so they're literally their own enemy in those countries because they're producing more of a responsibility where they can't even take care of their minimal responsibility. Let's just say their average number per family was 2, like it is in the wealthier countries, which is what he's describing. He's saying they're even having a problem taking care of those 2. So even with that problem, with the inability to take care of 2 children, well, now they are producing 7 children per family, which makes them, and this is where we have, these feed the children programs, because we see the problem, folks. Christians see the same problem. And so they're like, let's take care of these countries. And we're seeing it from a provisional standpoint. We're seeing it, but he's seeing it from a healthcare standpoint. He's saying if you provide proper healthcare to the nations that are poor, then they don't feel the need to have to overproduce, because you can actually cause what they produce to survive. So they don't have to spit out 7 kids in hopes that one of them might take care of them when they get older. Now they can spit out just a few kids and have a better chance of being taken care of. See, this is the point, folks. A lot of people are saying, well, what's wrong with kids? Well, nothing's wrong with kids unless you're producing them to take care of you in your old age. If that's if that's the purpose of having children, is just so that they can grow up to take care of you, then you're missing the point. And he's basically saying, that this is one of the motivations behind the need to overproduce in these countries. So, folks, the facts are there. This is what, and so Bill Gates, to a guy who believes in modern medicine, okay, this is a guy who doesn't understand supernatural healing, right? So, even with supernatural healing, I'm in favor of modern medicine because I've seen it save lives. I've seen people get prophecies over them that the Lord would keep them and they would not die. And then I watched how he used modern medicine to actually fulfill the prophetic word. So I've come to appreciate and respect the abilities that we have nowadays. Man, they can go in and take and replace shoulders and knees. And you could be out of surgery in a day with an artificial knee that literally causes you to be able to walk where you could barely walk before. I think this type of stuff is absolutely dynamic and revolutionary breakthrough that is given by the inspiration of God, because God is the one that blesses us to be, intuitive or technologically inspired, to be able to work with our hands to create and to build and to produce and to invent and all these different things. The devil wants to take away those things. Now, can the devil use them? Of course, just like he uses the media platform, but so can Christians. And so my emphasis, folks, is the reality is we need to weigh the information. We need to weigh the information that is being presented, but we need to be able to move out of the way all of the commentaries and go right for the source. the source that all these commentaries are being built upon. Who in their right mind listens to commentaries but never actually goes to the source? That's like reading people's interpretations of the Bible rather than you reading the Bible yourself. You know, I mean, as a Christian, this should not be something that is far from us. This should actually be at the basis, a fundamental, foundational platform at which we judge things from. This should be at the core of Christianity, folks. But this seems to be a missing component that is extremely valuable, essential. You cannot go without it. But apparently, Christians are running around reading commentaries as if they are facts themselves, which is no different than reading people's commentaries about what the Bible says instead of reading the Bible yourself. What needs to be done? Tell the conspiracy theorists to come forth with direct evidence of him saying what they claim he said. No articles or blogs that other people created, but out of the horse's mouth, true evidence. I'd be interested to see this evidence. Well, Dana, we just watched it. Okay, actually, forgive me. Let me go to the actual video. See, what we actually just watched is the video that explains the video that everybody's talking about, where he specifically is talking about CO2 emissions. It's a TED Talk. It's about an hour long. It'll bore you to death because it's terrible. I mean, unless you're interested in CO2 emissions, because he's talking about CO2 emissions for the entire video. And then he gets to the solution for the problem. And he talks about, I think, 5 or 7 main influential components that add to the CO2 emission problem. And he talks about population, obviously, is important or has an effect. And he's still not saying, you know, that we need to wipe out humanity. But wait, he says that the devices that we use, like vehicles and bus lines and trains and all these different things, those release emissions. So those can bring this down. And then he talks about some other variables, but then he talks about how to address them. And so he's like, well, for the population issue, which you just heard from him, he specifically says it's not even really a daunting issue by and large. Where it actually is an issue is in the poor countries. And he says in another video, let me tell you why. But see, he didn't describe that in this video that everybody's, circulating. And this is where they've literally taken what he said and put their own spin on it rather than just be inclined to research what he meant. And so he specifically says, I believe with proper health care and proper vaccinations, that we can help the population issues in the poor countries. Well, that's because the vaccinations, according to medical research and science and, the opinions, we'll just leave it at that. Like I said earlier in the video, whatever you think about vaccinations isn't even the issue, because he might think they're good and you might think they're bad. It doesn't really matter. The point is they're not judging that. They're judging his motives, where they're basically saying, exactly. She says it was their smoking gun. They have not. She says if that was their smoking gun, they have nothing. That is a woman right there with actual sense. This has been my point the whole time. If that was their smoking gun, now they have nothing, because we took the very foundation that all of this was built upon, and we've just completely pulled the rug out from under them. Now, I'm not saying that there couldn't be other variables, but the idea that Bill Gates is going to create a vaccine to control humanity or reduce the world's population, not in the way that they're believing he said that. No. He's actually believing that it's going to save lives, and that's why it'll decrease the world's. I know it makes no sense to somebody who doesn't understand, but if you understand how humanity operates in the poor countries, well, now it makes sense. And so you have people who don't understand how possibly he could have been saying it would decrease the world's population by saving lives. And because they don't understand that, that's why they're perpetuating these lies as bearing false witness. Yes, you heard me say it. We have Christians bearing false witness. And if that's not a problem, then I don't know how to help you. Because the reality is anytime we are bearing false witness, we need to be corrected. And so the people that are perpetuating this, let me give me 1 second. I'm going to, one moment. All right, we are almost there. All right. So, yeah. I was wondering. Oh, I've watched that video, Kathy. I've watched that video, absolutely. And I think that that's the problem. Somebody is bringing up vaccinations again. And I don't know how many times in this video I've mentioned that if this is a topic of conversation, then you're missing the point, because it has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. What we're actually talking about is what people are saying Bill Gates' motives were behind depopulating the world through vaccinations. And they're saying, well, you'll just have to go back and watch the video. But yeah, these are the types of things that people are bringing to the table that I'm like, wait a minute. If we get too scattered, folks, if we're not able to compartmentalize everything and be able to separate facts, because we can't prevent our emotions from getting involved. Remember the comment? Let me pull it back up here. We need to get our emotions out of the content. That's one thing that we need to get out. We also need to get out our personal belief systems, because that's the whole reason I brought up and titled this video, Snopes is an unreliable source until they're a reliable source. Because, see, who cares what our perspectives are about Snopes? Because if they produce an article that actually is valid and factual and truth, then you can call them whatever you want to call them. But at least for this article, it was factual. It was truth. And that's my whole point, is that, yeah, so it's very, very important that we understand, no, Kathy, it's not relevant. You probably need to go back and listen to the beginning of the video. It's extremely important to understand that here we are again. If we're not able to separate the facts, then we're going to completely miss the point. And everybody's opinions about vaccines, everybody's opinions about Bill Gates, everybody's opinions about their understanding of what he said from his TED Talk video, because they didn't understand how he possibly could have meant that you can decrease the world's population by saving lives. And absolutely, God bless you too, Kathy. Take care. So, yep. People, that's the point. They don't want to listen. She's like, okay, fine. If you're not going to listen to me, then I got to go. This is the point, folks. People only want to be heard. They're not willing to see anything outside of what they currently believe. That, folks, is actually pride. We have to stop doing this. We're going to go back to it again, the comment that says we need to get our emotions out of the way. Because pride is an emotion. It's the idea that we won't listen to what you have to say unless you're willing to listen to what I have to say. Well, listen, this is my broadcast today, folks. And I have listened to, I understand. She posted a video that I need to watch. I've watched the whole video. I've seen the whole video. So her very argument of saying, well, if you just watch this, then you would be on my side. Well, I've watched it, and no, I'm not necessarily on that side of the fence with that either, because I still am up in the air about those things. I am not a supporter nor a denier of vaccinations. In fact, I have a pastor friend who just shared a story the other day. He was going to Africa, and he took the malaria vaccination. And one time, he felt like he was going to step out in faith and not take that vaccination. And he went to Africa, and he contracted malaria, and he almost died. He almost died. And he thought he was doing this in the name of God. He thought he was doing this in the name of faith. And he was actually a friend who actually was really even putting himself out there when this whole coronavirus thing, and he's like, we're not shutting down church. And I wasn't addressing him directly. I was just posting publicly, folks, we need to be wise, we need to be careful, and we need to not be stupid. And after he began to watch my videos, he private messaged me. And he said, listen, I got a testimony for you, and I really want to appreciate, I want to tell you that I really appreciate what you've been sharing, because I actually have a real life testimony, and I almost let myself get out of control yet again with this whole coronavirus thing. I should have remembered what happened the last time when I tried to do this. And he says, that's when he told me he refused the malaria vaccination when he went to Africa, and he got malaria. And so that vaccination presumably saved his life multiple times. And he's not, so here's my point, folks, is that vaccinations within themselves are also something else that we need to be able to compartmentalize. The people are, let's say you got one bad vaccination, maybe two, maybe three, maybe four, maybe five, maybe six. I don't care. Pick your number. Let's say you have 10 dangerous vaccinations. Are you now circulating content that says all vaccinations are deadly and to hell with vaccinations? You better not be, because that's where we get emotionally entangled, folks. That's where we get emotionally entangled. So here's the thing. This guy who says sound doctrine, no more itching ears. Watch the Congress video of vaccines being questioned that they say have baby fetus and animal DNA in their vaccines. That's foreign DNA to your body, straight into your blood, and also nanotechnology. You know what? I understand that. I'm just telling you. I've watched all of this stuff, folks. But the point is you can still make vaccinations without all that stuff. Nowadays, they're talking about the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is basically material, tissue, that is not killing a life. And so you can actually use tissue, which they use in modern medicine all the time. In fact, your gums can get refilled with using cadaver tissue. It's a medical procedure. Sounds disgusting, right? Well, people are actually getting their teeth repaired by using cadaver tissue because it actually repairs their teeth. They preserve the tissue. It's crazy, I know, but that's why you're not a doctor, because that stuff weirds you out, and you couldn't be. The problem is it doesn't weird out some people, and that's why they're in the role they're in. That's why they're in the position they're in, and that's why you don't have the job that they have. Because, folks, it's like, I mentioned this yesterday, it's like us trying to tell a CEO of a corporation how to do his job when we flip burgers at Burger King. You just can't do it unless you actually understand how, something like that operates. Now, granted, we can talk about some of the details. I get it. All right, I get that. You could still make vaccines without everything that sound doctrine, no more itching ears, just referenced. You could still do it. I've researched all this stuff, and this is my point. I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because I can compartmentalize. I can sift through facts and not completely discard the entire thing because I'm not able to separate certain things. That's called wisdom, folks. We need to be able to separate things and not, you ever heard, don't judge a book by its cover? It's the same concept. So, yeah, there's been bad things in vaccines, right? Doesn't mean they can't still make vaccines without that stuff that could potentially not contain bad things in them. So we can refine the process. We don't have to discard the process, folks. I just told you the testimony of a minister friend of mine whose life has potentially been saved multiple times by a malaria vaccine. I have missionary friends from other countries who describe how they were missionaries decades ago, and how life in those times was so much more difficult, and how they've improved everything, and that children aren't dying and all these different things because they've implemented proper medical healthcare procedures. It's amazing. This is what Bill Gates was talking about. It's amazing, folks, when you actually boil it down and get down to the meat, the substance. Stop listening to the commentaries. Listen to what Bill Gates is saying. You can't judge. Man, how many times have we, remember the kindergarten thing? You whisper in one person's ear and it goes all to these different people and it comes back and it's something completely different. Because the more you recirculate information, did I not show you the post that I got yesterday? It's ridiculous, folks. Listen to this. This is the latest conspiracy theory. It starts with one thing and goes to another. This virus is man-made, and Bill Gates and a bunch of big money pharmaceuticals are trying to force the world to take a shot that for this man-made virus that they created, and it has a chip that goes to the DNA of the brain that makes humans basically turn into zero emotions, people like zombies, all this to control the world and to bring in the Antichrist. Tell all that you know, take the virus, don't take the virus cure shot. So now it started with one thing to now we're all walking around like zombie robots. Okay, Mr. Antichrist, I mean, come on. We have watched way too many movies, folks. It is so ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, whoops. Man, it's time we get back to the ability to compartmentalize certain things. And yeah, so it's really amazing. I thank God for blood transfusions. I thank God for all the different medical procedures that you know they've been able to do that actually do save lives. And I'm completely open to refining some of the process, but I'm not open to being totally foolish to where we throw out the entire thing because we won't accept refinement and corrections. Everything that, you know, certain people are bringing up, like sound doctrine, no more itching ears, dude, just brought up, you know, basically points to the fact that the vaccines have bad components in them. But he's still arguing that we must completely discard the entire thing, which is foolish. Take out the bad components and what do you have left? A vaccine with no bad components. Guys, we've got to be, come on. I really hope we get better. I really do. Snopes is unreliable until it's reliable. The devil is a liar until he actually tells the truth. Remember that? If you don't remember that part of the video, go back to the beginning. It's dynamic.